The FreeCAD program becomes easy to use for 3D modeling through the experience you gain by practicing 3D models, no matter how simple they are. For this 3D model, there are several ways to get to the final model. In this video, I show you how to get to this result in my way. If you find this video useful, please don't forget to hit like. As usual, the first thing that I will do is to create a blank document pressing empty file. As default of PartDesign workbench, I need to create a PartDesign body object in order to design any 3D model. So I press this icon to create a PartDesign body object, and next I will start modeling the 3D model, creating a sketch on the XY plane. In that sketch, I will create a geometry for this first shape here, this base shape here. So I go to my document, and what I will do is to click on the create sketch icon, and now I will choose the correct plane, which is XY plane for the first sketch. So I click here, XY plane. As you see, I am on the Sketcher workbench now, and what we'll do next is to go to Sketcher Geometries, these tools here of Sketcher workbench, and from these tools here I will select the centered rectangle tool. To select that tool, I have to go to rectangle tool, this tool here, and click on this arrow and then select create centered rectangle, this option. And next I start the rectangle on the origin axis, and I can set the dimensions of this rectangle on the fly, 108 millimeters by 108 millimeters, and I have a full defined geometry. If I skip this tool, as you can see, this sketch is full constrained, so I can close this sketch without problems. As you see, this is the dimensions of this geometry. So now I close this sketch and I press home on my keyboard. The next thing that I will do is to extrude the sketch using the pad tool of PartDesign workbench to create the first shape. So I click on this icon, the pad tool, and now I will set the length of this extrusion to 5 millimeters and then press OK to finish this. The next thing that I will do is to create this shape here. I am adding material to the document, so the next thing that I will do is to create this shape here. To do that, it's very easy. I will create a new sketch on the XY plane again. So I go to my document and I click on the create sketch icon, and now I select the XY plane. As you can see, it's not easy to select the XY plane. So I can go to the task panel and make a double click on the XY plane, like this. I am on the Sketcher workbench again, as you see, and what we'll do first is to switch to the session view to see the origin axis. So I press this icon, and as you can see, I have this. Now I go to the Sketcher geometries again, and I select centered rectangle. I create the rectangle on the origin axis. I will constrain this geometry to 110 millimeters by 110 millimeters, and I have the sketch full constrained. Now I leave the sketch pressing this icon, and next I select the pad tool to create an extrusion of this sketch. Now I will set the length of this extrusion to 185 millimeters by going to the task panel, length, and change this value to 185 millimeters, and then enter, and as you can see, I have this. Okay. The next thing that I will do on this 3D model is to create this shape here. To create this shape, I will need a sketch. That sketch I will create on this face here. I go to my document, and next I select this face here. With this face selected, I choose to create a new sketch on this face. And now what I'll do is to extract this edge here. To do that, I have to click on this icon here, the create external projection geometry icon. And now I just click on this edge, and as you can see, I have this line here. I can use this to place my geometry. So now I go to Sketcher Geometries, these all tools here, and I have to select Polyline tool. Now I zoom in here, and I can switch to the session view to see this endpoint here. So I click on this icon, and I have this. Now I just click on this edge, and I create a horizontal line. Now I created this line here, and a vertical line, and now horizontal line, I will click on this endpoint here and I will close this geometry by clicking on this point. Next, I skip this tool and I select the Great External Projection Geometry again. And I zoom in here, I just click on this edge and I extract this edge here. Now I skip this tool and I select these two endpoints here like this, and then I press constraint constant. And I have this, as you can see, 3 degrees of freedom here. This sketch is not full constrained. So what I will do next is to use the dimension tool to set the dimensions of this geometry. Looking at the 3D model here, I can say 5 millimeters for this edge here and 5 for this edge here. So I go to my document and I just click on this line here and I set 5. This line here, I set the same dimension, 5 millimeters, and now I just click on this line here and I set 100 millimeters, like this. And now I leave the sketch, pressing this icon, and I select pet tool to extrude the sketch. I reverse the duration of these 5 millimeters here on this field, and I press OK to finish this. Okay, as you see, I have this, and my next operation and my next step is to create another shape now on this side here. To do that, I will create a copy of this sketch here, of this extrusion. So I go to the model tab. In this last operation here, I click on this arrow and I select the sketch here, Ctrl C, and now use regional installations, and now I press Ctrl V to paste the sketch on this document. Now I select the sketch and I drag this sketch into this body here, and now spacebar to make it visible. And what I'm going to do now is to change the attachment of this sketch. So with this sketch selected, I go to the settings here, I go to map mode and I click here, and now on these 3 dots, plane button, and now I select this face here and then I press OK. And now I double click on this sketch here to change something here. Zoom in here, select this extracted edge and delete. And now I drag this geometry to here. Now here I select this dimension and I delete, and I drag this point to here. Here what I have to do is to extract this edge here. So I select the external projection geometry and I click on this edge here, and let's say use the constant constraint. I select this endpoint and now this endpoint, and I have this 1 degree of freedom. I select dimension and now I just click on this line here and I set 5 millimeters, and now skip 2 times to leave this sketch. And next I use the pet tool again to create the extrusion of this sketch. I set reverse it and I set the length to 5 millimeters, and here I have this. Now I press OK to finish this. And now that I have this, the next thing that I will do is to create occurrence of these 2 shapes here around this part here, like we see on this 3D model here. For occurrence of these 2 shapes, the way to do this is to first go to the document, go to the model tab, and I will close this arrow. And what you do, first select this pad here and now control this last pad and use the polar parent tool to create a polar array of these 2 shapes here. I have to fix the rotation axis of this operation. I go to the task panel. On axis, I click in normal sketch axis and I select the Z axis as the rotation axis of this operation. Now if I change to the top view, as you can see, now I have 2 occurrences of these 2 shapes here. To increase the number of occurrences, I go to the task panel, occurrence, and I set 4. And then click off and now press OK. And I have this. So I finished the process of adding material to the document. The next step now is to remove material on this part here. So the first thing that I will do is to create a sketch on the top face of this 3D model, this face here. On that face, I will create geometries for creating these pocket here and these all holes here for these screws. Okay, so I go to my document, I select this face here, and then I create a new sketch on it. Now I zoom in and I select centered rectangle and I create a rectangle here. I constrain this rectangle to 100 millimeters by 100 millimeters, and I have this as sketch full constrained. Now I will change the geometries to construction geometry, pressing this icon, and next I select center rectangle again. Now I click on this origin axis and I will create a rectangle with these dimensions 145 millimeters by 145 millimeters. This construction rectangle here I will use to set the placement of the cycles for these holes. Okay, so what I do, first I hide these all constraints pressing this icon, and next I change the geometry to normal geometry pressing this icon, and now I select cycle tool and I create 4 cycles here on the endpoints of this construction geometry. And now I will create 4 cycles on this axis like this, and I will use the constraint constant to place, for example, the center point in this line here, the center point on this line, this point here on this line here, and now this line here on the center point. Okay, I have these all cycles and also 8 degrees of freedom. What I have to do now is to set the diameter of these all cycles. I can do that at the same time. What I have to do is to escape this tool and go to the task panel here. Here on elements, I will scroll down and start selecting the cycle. Scroll up here until the last cycle and Shift K, and now click on this last cycle here. Now go to sketch your constraints, click on this arrow and select constraint diameter and set 10 millimeters. And as you can see, I have this. Now I close the sketch and next I select pocket tool. I just change the type to triangle and next I press OK, and I have this, as you can see. The next thing that I will do is to create a sketch on this face here. That sketch I will use to create these holes here. Okay, so I go to my document, I select this sketch and I create a new sketch on it. And the first geometry that I will create will be a slot geometry. So I go to sketch geometries of Sketcher workbench and I select slot tool. I created this slot in this way, and next I select cycle tool and I create 2 cycles on the vertical axis. The diameter of these 2 cycles is the same, 10 millimeters. So I will select this cycle, this one, and next I click here and I select constraint diameter and I set 10 millimeters. Now I will drag this line to here and select constraint constant and make this axis and this center point constant. And also I will extract this edge here. I select external projection geometry and I selected this edge and I have this line here as a reference. Now I select dimension tool and first I set the radius of this arc here to 7.5 millimeters. And this line here to 75 millimeters. And now from this center point to this edge here, I will set 30 millimeters. And from the center point to the center point of the cycle, I will set 120 millimeters. And now I have to center the slot geometry in these 2 center points of these 2 cycles. The way to do that is to select, for example, the center point and the center point of the slot, click off, and now I will set the formula for this distance. I will set 120 millimeters minus 75 millimeters and all this divided by 2 millimeters, and I will get 22.5 millimeters, and then I press OK and I have this. This sketch is full constrained, so I close this. Next I select pocket tool and I change the type here to triangle and OK. And as you can see, this is the final model. Okay, so if you learned something on this video, please don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the channel if you are not subscribed. And if you want to support the content of the channel, you can do that. Just go to the description of this video and you'll find a link to the channel's Ko-Fi page. Or you can choose to support the channel buying the ebooks that is appearing on the screen now. Thank you for watching this video. I hope to see you in the next video. Thank you.